I'm not the native of Edinburgh, though I've been here most of my life. Initially, I'm what you call a kettle boiler, which is an Edinburgh term for a Dundonian. Okay. The reason being that in Dundee in the 19th century, the mill owners realised it was an awful lot cheaper to hire women. So they hired the women for the jute mills and the men stayed at home and boiled the kettles. Ergo, I'm a kettle boiler. Okay. But I only knew that by coming to Edinburgh. I've been here off and on since 1965. This book arose out of about 20 years of teaching of radical history for Edinburgh University, Office of Lifelong Learning. And the more that I have studied Scottish history, no matter how far back, the more I have realised that we have never been told the truth about what has happened in the past in this country.
Yeah, so you felt a need to set the record straight.
Response, it's not just that, it's the response from classes over many years, the enthusiasm, and the fact that I've already done a bit of revisionism, writing about the Picts in particular, but also writing about prehistory, and the evidence I find has given a completely new interpretation to what is what you might call received opinion. Yeah. And I thought it was time to actually nail the problem. And the problem is that we have it's not just to do with England and Britishness, it's actually to do with Western culture. There are problems in how we perceive the past. Yeah. And through looking at Scotland, I've become aware of these. And although the book is about Scotland, if it gets a broad enough audience, it can be expanded, because the approaches that I'm taking in there apply equally well to a great many other places. I've always been extremely interested in folklore, because folklore holds on to realities that history ignores. History is always written with an agenda, always. Doesn't matter who's writing it, me included. The problem with history has been that until very recently, history was just about big men doing big things. And that's not what the past is about. And the reality of understanding that the past is much more complex than the simplistic, elitist versions that we've always been given. For me, the awareness of that arose through studying what you would call oral tradition, because there's an old cliche that says the winners write the history. Possibly. In fact, almost certainly. Doesn't mean to say that losers shut up. They talk to each other. And stories preserve what people find important. It's not necessarily the same approach as you get with history. History is very much trying to justify itself all the time by corroboration, and it's about dates and facts and about ascertainable realities. Story doesn't have that. Story deals with a much more social concept of truth. And story only survives because it fits in with what communities believe. And in that sense, story can provide a very, very, very good control on history. And it's actually through following story that I've found out quite a lot about Scottish history that quite honestly shocked me. Well, Scottish. I spent a great deal of time out and about in the landscape of Scotland, and from as far back as I can remember, I've been fascinated by standing stones, the structures on the top of hills that were so long called hill forts, and because of that, my interest in history is of course concentrated on my own culture. I find this absolutely natural. Oh, that changes. That changes. But I'd have to say my favourite part of it is the historiography, dealing with the actual process of history itself, because I'm developing new processes and approaches which mean that I actually look at history not in segments, which is normal, but in locales. Instead of looking at it horizontally like that, you're looking at narrow focal points over time. So it's actually looking at one particular place over time that I'm finding is leading to a great deal of new information and awareness.
Okay. And any particular places that you...
Well, I'm not going to say too much because a lot of this isn't published yet, but a lot of the work at the moment, me and I have several people working with me, we're concentrating on the area around Loch Leven, shall we say.
Okay.
The Lomans and the Ochels, Fife and Kinross.
I've not been there yet, unfortunately. But
Well, it's odd. It's a strange thing because, like so many people in Scotland, deeply involved with the culture, I've been drawn also for specific reasons to hills and mountains, and I've spent an awful lot of my time in quite out of the way places that are now relatively deserted. And then it's only recently, over the past 4 years, concentrating on the Lowland Hills in particular, that I've begun to actually become aware of the fact that there are people here as well. There've always been people here, and it's like, if you're looking at 10,000 years, more than 10,000 years of human habitation in Scotland, as we now understand, the traces of that survive even in places where you would think they'd all been ploughed under and built over. Yeah. And traces of it actually still remain. So it's actually through discovering this. It's great, instead of having to disappear for days on end, I can now just wander over to Fife for the Fife thing. It's awfully nice. The idea of this book is simply to start a debate, not just about the lies and distortions that we've inherited from the past, but also to discuss how we think history should be taught and what that history should be. This arises almost directly from the Curriculum for Excellence, which was instituted in 2009, because one of the main drives of that has been to actually teach children their own history through their own locality. And in that sense, I think we have to find out how much further we want to go with that idea. Although it's a brilliant idea for children, it also applies to everyone else. You want to find out who you are, where you come from. You find this a lot nowadays with people interested in genealogy in particular, but there are many more layers to it than that, and I think there needs to be a discussion as to what history we want to teach future generations of Scottish children.
Yeah.
And that's what the book's about, it's what it's intended to do.
Yeah, yeah.
And also sell hundreds of thousands of posters. I don't think there's necessarily a lack of either, but what I do think there is a great deal of confusion. And that needs to be clarified, because an awful lot of the ideas we presented about our past are the result of taking what I would describe as models from elsewhere and trying to fit Scotland's past to them, rather than understanding what Scotland's past actually is and developing things from there. The late great Hamish Henderson, on many occasions, said to me, "Remember Gramsci, Stuart, remember Gramsci." And what he was talking about was the Italian communist philosopher Antonio Gramsci, and what he made a very strong point about. And what that point was that politics never follows culture. Culture leads politics. And for people like me who've been totally absorbed in Indigenous culture in Scotland over the past 50 years, we have been, I suppose, remembering what Gramsci said and hoping that the fruits of our labours would eventually change the political scene. And I believe that that may be an analysis of the current situation that is correct. So therefore I would see that what is happening is part of an ongoing process that can only get stronger. And as has already been seen with the Curriculum for Excellence, which we've only got through because of a great deal of harrying of the Scottish National Party a couple of decades ago, the developments that I hope to see, apart from the political ones, are almost universally capable of being extremely positive. There may be a hiccup or two on the way, but I think that the political situation will help the work that I'm doing, and the work I'm doing will help the political situation. I have always got plans for new books. I suffer from literary diarrhoea. I can't stop writing. What comes next will depend very much on how this book goes, but there are a couple of other projects already started, but the long-term plan is for a couple of major new works, but I'm not quite sure of how they'll work out yet. It's, we have to see also, I think, in the changing political situation, how this can be affected. One of the things that is already obvious, and Leslie Rick was writing about this a few weeks ago in The National, she was saying that there is a growing demand for Scottish history. And as I'm giving an alternative version of Scottish history, I suspect I may end up having to write quite a bit more about various of the things I have likely covered in this book. So I'm leaving some time for that and hoping to live to 176. Lots of porridge.
The Scottish way.
Aye. Scottish. Yeah. The Scottish way is put whiskey in your porridge.
And salt.
Oh yeah. Oh, I mean, I mean, I fall out with people over that. My wife puts honey on her porridge.
Yeah.
What?
Brown sugar.
Oh, I mean, that's sacrilege. It's absolute sacrilege.
I put honey too.
No, I'm sorry. Salt, more salt, and if you're stuck whiskey.
Salty.
It's lovely. Once you get used, it's also much better for you.
Is it?
Yeah, I think so.
Salt. I guess it was just a wee bit, sorry.
No, certainly no more than a couple of tablespoonfuls.